and welcome to the Solo Moviegoers Club, a podcast where me, Sean, and my daughter, Kaya, watch the same movie in a different theater on opposite coasts. She sees it in a theater alone in LA where she lives. I see it alone in a theater in Detroit where I live. Then we're not allowed to talk to anybody else or read anything about this movie until we meet here on this podcast to discuss the film and see where the conversation goes from there. So this is our 10th episode, double digits, big deal. Thank you for sticking with us. We're having a blast doing this. We hope you're enjoying it too. And this week's movie is Heretic. Kaya, what do you think about Heretic?
I have been dying to talk about this movie all week, and I've kind of talked about it with a couple of my friends, like trying to convince people to go see it. But for my solo movie going experience personally, so I went to this coffee shop on my way there. I was going in the morning because I had calls literally right after. And so I picked up a coffee from a weird spot. The cold brew tasted like butter, so I was like already kind of bummed. And then I get into the theater and there's probably like 5 solo moviegoers in there. And I will say, like, the past couple of times that I've gone, there have been a lot less. There's been a lot of groups. So it was good to see. And, like, the crowd was good. Like, they were laughing and engaging. And, yeah, it was seriously, like, one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year.
Yeah, what was our last movie was Nora? And then we've had a couple back-to-back bangers.
Good. Yeah.
So my solo movie-going experience started kind of horribly. So I saw this movie at 11 a.m. on a Thursday. I got a coffee. Like, I was very well prepared. I was very early. I grabbed a coffee from this coffee shop that had just like rebranded. And I thought it was a different coffee shop, but it was the same coffee shop it's always been, just with a different sign on it. And I don't like their coffee, first of all. And was bummed upon realizing this. It gets worse. The barista had made somebody like a lox and bagels deal right before making my coffee. And the coffee smelled... I got an iced Americano, and it smelled so much like fish that I couldn't drink it. I tried, like, throughout the movie, I tried 4 or 5 times to drink it, hoping that the fish smell would dissipate. It never dissipated. I just consistently was smelling fish.
Yeah, the
So
butter
that
coffee,
wasn't great.
the fish coffee, not good.
Butter coffee and fish coffee. Wow. Someone should combine our butter and fish and give us our
why
coffee
do we
back.
both have such a bad coffee experience? Like, that's like what I remember most. Whatever.
Yeah, that's weird. So anyways, in the theater itself, there were 2 other people in the theater. Mm-hmm. And they were, I don't know why people do this. They were sitting in those very front row, like, makeout couches.
Oh, that's crazy.
The whole theater was empty. They could have sat anywhere. I had the best seat in the theater, and these people were in the very front. But they were, like, making an experience out of it. They had blankets, and, like, I think they had concessions. They were doing a whole thing.
Were they young?
And they were probably, like, late 20s.
Okay.
Early 30s. Okay. So, fair. I don't know. You tell me if that's young. So yeah, an interesting. This is. Let me just note this, because once we get into what this movie was, this will make sense why I'm bringing this up. I normally would not bring this up, but it struck me for this particular movie. This couple that were the only people in the theater, the woman was wearing a hijab, which I would assume it could have just been a fashion statement, but I would assume that they're Muslim, and this was a movie that questions all faith. Not just any particular faith, but it was interesting to me. Like, and this is just me completely projecting, but if I wear certain attire that reflects my faith, I'm probably pretty devout about my faith. And I think it's a pretty interesting choice for a date movie to go to a movie that is all about questioning faith if you are a person of devout faith. And again, that's totally projecting. They could be very casual Muslims. She could be reflecting her cultural heritage as opposed to religious beliefs. There's a million different reasons why, but it was just, as I was watching the movie, I was thinking about it, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I actually wanted to talk to them after, but I wasn't able to because I had to go to the bathroom and basically sprinted out of the theater.
Yeah.
But I wanted to engage with them and ask about this. And if I would have had these answers.
You're looking pretty Catholic with that get up.
Oh God, really? Is this a
Yeah,
priest collar?
a little bit, yeah.
Wow, I wonder if I subconsciously did that. So
I don't know.
a
Just thinking
little
about it.
a little background on this is I probably have mentioned in previous podcasts that I went to Catholic school, and that really informs my movie going. It informs everything. Like, you cannot go to a
Hmm.
school of any sort of religious faith and not have it affect your worldview one way or another, just because these really big ideas are implanted into your brain. You're indoctrinated, I guess, from a very young age with ideas that you're taught to feel guilt if you question these ideas. So then if you're a person who eventually
Hmm.
does question those ideas, it's just something that sticks with you. But my to go deeper on that, my mother is like very, very devoutly Catholic, and my dad is agnostic, or at least was. I'm not sure. I haven't talked about it in a while. His reason was he thought, and I stole it verbatim. I tell this to everybody if they ask me what my like religious beliefs are. I say I would like to say that I'm atheist, but I'm agnostic because I think it's just as arrogant to say that you're atheist as it is to say that you've chosen the one true religion.
Yeah.
Like, and I've
I
heard
I
other
say
people
something
debate
very
that.
similar too.
Yeah, and it's oh man, we're gonna get deep on this one. We're gonna go to some
Yeah.
events that have happened recently that have made me question everything.
Hmm.
But but to talk about the movie, Kai, do you want to do the 2 minutes this time?
Sure. So
Oh,
I'll
I've
I
been working for
I'm
this for
not,
10
it's gonna be
weeks.
less than 2 minutes. I don't even want to be timed. Don't time me. I know it's gonna be less than 2 minutes. It's basically about these two Mormon missionary girls, Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton, and they're going door to door, and like they're obviously, they in the beginning they're both kind of like questioning. The one girl, Sister Paxton, is questioning like porn and like talking about it being a sin and stuff, but you can tell she's like not like fully believing it, like she's convincing herself. And right off the bat you can tell that Sister Barnes is like not super into practicing the religion. I'm like, we don't get like her backstory or anything. But it's basically about them going door to door to these places and just how hard it is because no one really takes them seriously. And they finally get to this one guy who they think they're going to be able to convert. And once they get there, he like invites them in, and there's like this whole conflict because they can't be there in a room without a woman present. And he's like, yeah, yeah, my wife's in the back, whatever. And fully he tricks them. So they're like stuck in this place, and he's already like, he's the annoying guy that is like criticizing people's religion and like questioning them and telling them, like giving them really strange philosophical questions, and they want to leave but they can't because there's no phone connection, whatever, like metal in the walls. He tricks them. He's just like, he's like the professor that is really annoying in school, like just like I can't even explain it. But yeah, it's about them getting stuck in his place, and it's because he is struggling himself with finding the perfect religion or the answer to the universe, I guess. That's all I can say. That's all I can. I don't want to
Yeah,
give it
and
all away, but
we won't give it away. He makes them play a game
yeah.
essentially, and he uses games as a metaphor for the different iterations of religion. He
Uh-huh.
looks back historically. He finds 10,000 religions that have similarities to Christianity and to Mormonism and to like the big three faiths, and then he compares that to these different games. This original game that was the precursor of Monopoly, and then
Yeah.
Monopoly, and then like the next Monopoly. And so he looks at that as being like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and then he looks at Mormonism as an offshoot. And then he looks at all these other religions, and he's been trying to find the true religion. He believes he's found it. He wants to prove to them that he's found it, and he makes them play this game. And obviously, it is a horror movie, so things get pretty horrific at different
Mhm.
times in the movie. I'm not going to give everything away. Like, I don't think I want to do spoilers for this one. I'll do like semi spoilers. So if you want to know
Yeah.
nothing, first of all, I think the best way to see this movie is to know nothing. Just know
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. But
Yeah.
so don't listen to the rest of this podcast. Go see the
Literally,
movie
just
and
watch
then
the
start the
trailer.
podcast again. Yeah, just watch the trailer. The trailer does a really good job of not giving anything away. But it ends up, it goes through. I mean, what I thought was really fascinating about this movie is that we're in this era of films. First of all, I think we're in an absolute new golden era of movies. Like independent movies, especially, are coming out.
Yeah.
There are some awesome movies coming out, and they're
I
movies
agree.
that challenge the conception of what you would think would be. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about this. Like Honora, on the surface, shouldn't be successful. Honora is a comedy that turns into a drama with no major movie stars in it. This movie has Hugh Grant, who's awesome in it, but he's playing
So
against
good.
type. He's playing this old creep, and this movie becomes a genre movie about 2/3 of the way in, but for most of this movie, it is a chamber drama discussion between three people about faith. Like, this movie should not be doing well at the
Yeah.
box office. This movie should not be. This isn't. If you were to take this to a Hollywood studio and say, "Will you greenlight my movie in which an old guy sits in a windowless room and talks to two young women about religion and the nature of faith," that this will be a successful film? Everybody would tell you no. Yet somehow
Yeah.
it is. And it's riveting. It's actually, I think the one person I talked to, so Kaya knows who this is. I can't give his identity away because he has another job and it's his business. But a friend of mine is in rabbinical school right now. And that's who I talked to about this because multiple people, by the way, Kaya included, told me before I saw this movie that like this was way up my alley. This is the kind of stuff I think about, I talk about, and it even went deeper. Like, it was kind of tripping me out because not only is this about religion, which I'm very interested in, it goes to a place of, at one point, an exploration of simulation hypothesis. And Hugh Grant's character, Mr. Reed, ties that to religion, and then he takes a twist and turns it into something else as being the real religion. But what's crazy about it is the movie becomes less scary when it becomes like a
I
genre movie.
agree. I so agree. Like once there's I don't want to spoil it, like the gory parts of it, those didn't scare me. It was like all of the beginning and like his explanations of religion and like the universe, that was the scary part. It got
That
less scary as it went on.
So the rabbinical school friend of mine said the exact same thing. It's great, by the way. But I caveat saying it gets less scary. That doesn't make it any less interesting. The movie's still great.
No.
But the scariest part of the movie, and this is what's so awesome, is that it's people standing in a triangle, essentially, in this room, having a conversation, and it's utterly horrifying. Like bone-chillingly terrifying. And then once it gets to your more traditional genre elements, there's some violence, there's some creepy, creature-ish people, hagsploitation. Again, there's some hags.
Yes, so much.
Once that happens, that's not as nearly as scary as what had
No.
preceded it. It's crazy. Like, the movie never hits. It's very good. It's very entertaining. I like what happens, but it never gets scarier than those three standing in that room having that discussion. And this isn't necessarily a spoiler. This might be in the trailer. It might not. But at one point, Hugh Grant's Mr. Reed says to these two young women, he writes on the doors. He's like, you have to choose which door to go through. One says belief, the other says disbelief. And he's like, he's like, what I'm going to say might even make you want to die. It's so scary. And it is.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah.
you have to, because these are devout, these are Mormon missionaries. They're spending their life not only believing in something, but spreading the word of their belief because they believe in it so powerfully. And he says, what is more terrifying? That there's a God who, he uses a couple examples. He's like, hates gays, watches you in the bathroom, judges you for everything that you do, or that there is no God. What's more terrifying? I mean, this is the question that I ask myself almost daily. Like, it's really, really terrifying to think about. And in talking to this rabbinical school friend, like the one that he said that he's asking his professors every day, he's challenging them. And he says, like, tell me why this is true. Please, just I want you to break down why this is true, why God is real, why these things are true. And for me, it's like, so he said, he told me about this Jewish philosopher 1,100 years ago who, this is at the time when like Greek thought and Aristotle and all of this philosophy was coming into the world. He then questioning over a millennium ago was questioning as all of these as all these new ideas come into the world, we kind of get pushed further and further from God and further and further from faith. How do we continue to explore our faith in a world where there's all these things in between us and God? And I feel like this dude was feeling like that over 1,000 years ago. Sorry, dog.
Yeah.
Our dog is barking. Over 1,000 years ago. Like, think about where we are now, because we've got science that stands in the way of us. But ultimately, there are no answers. Like, we push and push and push. And like, we literally push this question through space-time. And you get to the Big Bang, which is like the predominantly believed theory amongst physicists, I believe, today. Or maybe it's simulation hypothesis. I'm not sure. It's one of the two. But whatever the most commonly believed is, even if you have a simulation, well, what's the original? What's base reality? There's got to be something. Who started that? Even with the Big Bang, what started that? Okay, so it's all these chemicals that came together and it's this magical explosion of energy. What started the energy? So we've just pushed the question, ultimately still get to something we don't understand started this. And in this 1,000-year-old Jewish philosopher's idea, that answer is always God.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to me, because what that answer is always going to be like where the terror lies, because ultimately whatever's at that beginning, we have to assume is at our end.
Yeah.
And this movie just had that conversation. Like, I'm really surprised that this got made and is doing as well as it is, because it's heavy. It's not like it's also really entertaining. Like, it's good. It's well executed. It's well done, but it is heavy subject matter from the minute they start rolling, and they inject it with fun, of course. Like, what's the opening conversation they're having is about condoms, and then at the end, it's, you know, we do get to see some movie magic happen, in the sense that we get to see a character do something we want to see them do. So it does have some humor, and it also has like a nice emotional payoff. But I have a question for you about the emotional payoff.
Okay.
What do you think happened at the end?
I mean, we see it. I think well, I wanted to actually talk about Sister Paxton while you were talking, just like the fact that she was the Mormon missionary girl who at the beginning was like all nervous and like, oh, I just want to convert people, like, oh, I can't believe people don't believe us, but like she was also like, you could tell she was questioning it. Like, she's a smart girl, but she was kind of like shown as the dumb one. And in the end, she was the one who was able to kind of stand up to Mr. Reed and like almost scare him with her answers and like really challenge him herself. And at the end, I don't think that she would return.
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, I don't think they ever portrayed Paxton as dumb. I think she was childlike and naive. I think like in the way that she's talking to Barnes about things, whether it's like the pornography or whatever, she's talking about it the way a little kid would.
Yeah,
it's
that's
uncomfortable.
a better way to put it.
It's uncomfortable for her to talk about, but she's clearly curious about it. Whereas, and she was born in the church, whereas Barnes came to the church, and Barnes is clearly the more worldly of the two. And you think that Barnes is the smarter, more sophisticated of the two, and that turns out to not be the case.
Yeah. Maybe it's like more sheltered or something. That might be a better word, but yeah. Yeah,
she's very sheltered. She's very sheltered, but very clever. But there's a moment in the movie where Barnes says that, and I'm going to try to say this without spoiling it too much. There's a moment where they see a butterfly on a window, and Barnes says that she likes to imagine that she will come back in her next life as a butterfly and land on the fingers of somebody, not on the hands, not on the arm, on the fingers. And at the end of the movie, a butterfly lands on Paxton's fingers. And do you think...
It disappeared too, by the way.
And it disappears. Is that a hallucination, or is that proof that this whole thing is a simulation?
Ooh, that's a good question.
because they talk about, so I read a book last year about simulations. So the book was
Hmm.
about how real simulations work, both in video games, in terms of abstract simulations, war games, simulating markets, things like that. And it ultimately gets to saying something that Reed says in the movie, which is when you ask a question that can never be proven false, and you cannot prove that this is or is not a simulation. It's impossible. You can have all the evidence in the world, you can have all the data in the world. You cannot prove that this is or is not a simulation that we live in our world. And that's how this guy starts his book. And he's like, but I'm going to try. And one of the things he brings up is that butterfly story, which they talk about in the movie. And the idea is, I'm not even going to try to go to the Chinese philosopher's name, but an ancient Chinese philosopher once had a dream that he was, and I think I'm going to get this, I'll get the idea, I'll be directionally correct on this. This ancient Chinese philosopher had a dream that he was a butterfly, and he lived this whole life and he's flying around doing butterfly things, and then he wakes up and he's a man. But the question is that how it worked, or is he really a butterfly dreaming that he's a man and his whole life is a
Okay.
dream? And it goes into this very elaborate, do you remember that moment where they bring that up in the film? They like kind of brush over it. He calls it the butterfly story, and she's like, "Oh, is that when a butterfly flaps its wings and then there's a
Yeah,
tsunami?"
yeah, I
And
remember this.
he's like,
Yeah.
"No, that's the butterfly effect." So, anyways, the
Yeah.
thing for me was at the end seeing that butterfly. Yes, the butterfly ties back to Barnes and her wishes, but the fact that it disappears, it also calls into question the simulation. Like, was Reed right that it's a simulation? Does Reed even believe it's a simulation, or was he just trying to test her faith with the simulation hypothesis? He keeps saying it's not a theory, it's a hypothesis. But
Yeah.
that to me was so interesting and so smart, because even when you look at where Paxton is at the end of the movie, the colors are so vivid and so bright, so beautiful, and the sun is coming through the trees, and then this butterfly
It's
lands
like
on his fingers and it's
Twilight.
gone. Yeah, it's
It's like,
too good. It looks too good.
yeah.
Like my takeaway at the end of the movie was that that butterfly was proof that they are in a simulation.
Or that whole story was just a dream.
Yes, could have been just a dream. Yeah, but I mean the fact that like these are heady, philosophical, religious, academic discussions, and this movie just straight up had that discussion for an hour and 50 minutes. Like that is
Yeah.
bold and awesome.
I was thinking about this the whole time because I'm vegan. A lot of people like try to question me in conversation, kind of like pull a Mr. Reed on me all the time with like, will you eat plants? And I'm thinking like I need a movie like that for veganism or something. Like it like there that conversation is so heavy and no one is really willing to have it.
Yeah. That
And I will say, like the different pop cultural references were so great. Like the main song, that was like the song in the movie by the Hollies, The Air
the
That
air
I
that I
Breathe.
breathe.
I've been playing that song all day, every day since I saw that movie, by the way. It's
I have
so
to
good.
I have to tell you something that you're not going to believe. Okay, so in the movie,
Okay.
like Mr. Reed is talking about iterations, and he talks about
Yeah.
the fact that the air that I breathe, that song, Radiohead made a song called "Creep." The Hollies
Also a
sued
fave of mine.
Radiohead. Great song. The Hollies sued Radiohead because they said the song was too similar. And then Lana Del Rey made a song called, what's the name of the Lana Del Rey song?
Get Free, which is also
Get
incredible.
Get Free. And Radiohead, who had been sued over their melody being too similar, sued Lana Del Rey over her melody being too similar. And Mr. Reed's point is like the same way that he sees all these different religions as iterations of the same story. This is all just iterations of the same melody. It's not, it's not outright theft. Anyway, so yesterday on the way to the movie, guess what song came on Sirius XM?
Oh my God.
The Hollies, The Air That I
Yeah.
Breathe. And I jammed it. So it didn't just come on. I recognized what was on. I was like, oh man, I haven't heard this song in forever. This song is great. I cranked it. So that's what I was listening to. And So when that song started, you had told me previously, like, there's a great use of music. So when that song started playing in the movie, I was like, oh my god, this is so creepy. Then when the movie
Yeah.
starts talking about simulation theory, I was like, oh well, if I ever needed proof that I'm in a simulation, and they talk in the movie like, when has God given you proof that he
Yeah.
exists? And like for Paxton, it was the shame in a woman's face who was a porn actor. But
Hmm.
I for me, I was like, oh well, if I needed some simulation proof, it gets worse. So they use
Hmm.
creep, they use the Hollies, they use creep, and then there's a song at the end of the movie in the credits, and at the beginning of the song I thought it was going to be Lana Del Rey, but it wasn't, which is kind of
Hmm.
disappointing. Like, why not
Yeah.
complete the trifecta? It was just some other song. So last night I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I've got Spotify on, just like the Spotify algorithm, the DJ, right? Spotify has this like AI DJ. I've got that on.
Hmm.
Guess what song comes on?
What song? Get
Lana Del
Free?
Rey, Get Free.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It like it I my day was bookended by the song that the movie
Yeah.
uses as an example of an iteration. Like, I've got double simulation proof here.
That's been happening to me a lot recently, and I've been watching a lot of conspiracy videos and like reading a lot about AI and simulation theory. Like this past week, for no reason, I don't really know why, and that's been happening a lot. So,
I mean, do you think you've been
crazy.
reading about it because the movie piqued your interest?
No, I didn't even think about that as being
I'm
like
gonna
the starting off
I'm
point.
I'm gonna send you this book. This book is phenomenal and really trippy. Like, if you don't want to be tripped out, don't read it. Uh, it's called Reality Plus by David J. Chalmers.
Can I listen to it? I'll listen to it in
Yeah,
the car.
I'm gonna send you the Audible link right now.
Okay.
It's
No,
incredible. Like,
no, I
it
have to tell this
it's
story
ooh,
because this
please
literally
do.
just happened to me. So there's like this song that I started playing. What is it? What is it? What is it? The shoot. It's I'm literally looking right now.
By the
Okay,
way,
the
those
wreck
noises in
of
the background
Edmund.
are Kaya's gardeners are the
Sorry,
noise in the
sorry.
background.
It's really loud. Hopefully you can edit that out. The wreck of Edmund Fitzgerald. And I was listening to this like right after I was running one morning at like 7 a.m. and I sent it to my friend. And I'm
For
like,
like
why
the
am I
gales of
listening to
November?
Yeah, I'm like, why am I listening to this? This song is so good. And he's like, yeah, it's literally awesome, whatever. And he's a painter and he like went to go paint with his dad and he said, you'll never believe what song just started playing. And there's a ladybug. Like he's like, there's a ladybug on me. He's like, what kind of witchcraft is this? And then I'm not even kidding. 2 days later, I am out at like shopping, like in Malibu. I'm at Aviator Nation. Guess what song is playing when I walk
The
in?
wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yes, that's crazy. Like that
The
song specifically is crazy. That's such a
wait,
weird song.
what's the significance of the ladybug?
Um, ladybugs typically mean like good luck or like someone is with you or good fortune or they're just like signs like for me specifically because it's like good luck, I guess. And it's also like people for me, like my friends associate me with ladybugs, so that's why.
So that's
But
your butterfly.
yeah, that's why I thought it was weird.
I will say that song does tend. It is weird. I'm not taking the weirdness away. That song does get played more in November because that ship sunk in November.
Weird. I didn't even know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it. I think
That's
it
so
says it in the
weird.
song. The gales of November. That's like this is. Oh, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. So where I live in Michigan, we actually that's where the Edmund Fitzgerald sank in Lake Superior, which is in northern Michigan.
Uh-huh.
And just this past week, there were I think 27-foot waves on Lake Michigan,
Whoa.
which is huge. I
That
realize that's
song.
that's nothing compared to an ocean wave, but like on a lake, the way the waves
Yeah.
hit, they hit closer together. So like a 27-foot wave on a lake is far more dangerous than a 27-foot wave on the ocean.
I like didn't know the lore about that song though. Like truly. So
Yeah,
that's just weird.
it's horrific. Like every once in a while, I will listen to that song, and think about how horrible it would be to be on a sinking ship in the cold water in November in
Yeah.
northern Michigan as like, and
That's
they
so
heard it.
weird.
I think isn't it didn't that they were like able to get a call out as the ship was sinking, and there's like still nothing they could do. All these people just drown in this freezing
Yeah.
cold water. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what a weird thing to write a song about. Is that a murder ballad?
Oh my God. It could be.
It's murder ballad adjacent. So we've got this murder ballads project that we're working on, and there's this book. And what I really like about the book is it's not so murder ballads are a genre of song that date back to like hundreds of years to a time in Northern Europe and in England where most people couldn't read. And so the town crier would essentially like write songs about crimes and would sing those songs to the locals. And now it's a full genre of music. But this book is really smart in that the writer doesn't just limit it to strictly murders, but it's kind of all death. It's a way to explore death through song. By the way, you're wearing skulls on your shirt. Speaking of death, so
I know. I was gonna
there's a-
say this is like the religious thing because you're dressed very Catholic and I'm dressed very like, not
if I
that.
had to, if are you familiar with the concept of memento mori?
Yes,
Your shirt is very memento mori.
I know.
That is for listeners who aren't familiar with that. I might butcher this a little, but a memento mori is a reminder of death. It's something that you keep around. It's like a skull, etc., to remind you of death, to remind you that it's coming for us all, and you should embrace your life because one day it will be over. Which also ties us back to, I mean, ultimately, that's the. Are there other this is just a question. Do you think people ascribe to certain religious beliefs for any other reason than wondering what happens when we die?
Probably.
What?
I mean,
Like, what else? What, like, I feel like all the other questions in life, we can come to pretty reasonable conclusions just through evidence that surrounds us. That's the one big thing is, and the only reason I'm even wondering where we come from. If I didn't wonder what was going to happen to me after, I wouldn't care where I came from. I would never question it. Wouldn't bother me. I'd be
Yeah.
like, the chicken and the egg. Oh, by the way, they proved recently, it's proven, scientific fact, the egg came first. So no longer can anyone use the chicken egg metaphor. But
Weird.
I would not care where I came from if I knew where I was going.
I still don't really care about. I don't think I would ever care where I came from or what like that whole thing is.
You don't think about it. Girl in the skull shirt doesn't think about what happens
No.
after you die.
No.
I remember we've talked about this several times, but you're not afraid of death.
No, because I've come close to death so many times. I used to be really
Tell me
scared
one.
of dying. What? No, I don't want to. It's very personal. But I used to be really scared of dying, and now I'm just like whatever. Okay, this is what I tell people. I always tell people like I believe in the universe. Obviously, like energy can't be created nor destroyed, that sort of thing. So like it doesn't really like trip me out. But I also like there's simulation theory. There are so many different like possibilities that I like to ponder those and think about them, but there's nothing like definite in my brain or nothing that like I want to necessarily happen to me.
So simulation theory makes me. I am not comfortable with death whatsoever. Like it's the
Yeah.
it's the unknown. It's not like there's moments like I don't know why everyone always uses this example, but when you're on an airplane and it starts to get really turbulent or really gnarly, everyone thinks about death.
starts
Everybody
praying.
on that plane is thinking about death. People are praying, and in
Yeah.
those moments, I'm honestly fair. That's why I'm not like a fearful flyer, is because I have no control. And I'm like, for
Yes.
most of my day, like I have control. I can do something about it. Like if I'm on a run and
Yeah.
I see a car coming towards me, I can jump out of the way. When I'm on the plane and it starts to get a little hairy, I'm like, all right. I mean, I guess if this is how I go out, this is how I go out. And in those moments, I'm comfortable with the inevitability. I think it's where I'm not comfortable with the inevitability is when I can do something about it, because then
Yeah.
I'll feel like if I die, I've failed in some way, like I've lost the
Yeah.
game. But simulation theory actually makes me a lot more like overall comfortable with death, because if it's a simulation, it's a video game. And in video games, you always, typically in most games, you get a second life or the game reboots in some way. So like if it's a simulation, then I don't think there is an end. I think there's just a reboot. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's a very, like, I guess, Buddhist kind of way of looking at
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
Or even a Christian way of looking at it. Like, what is heaven if not a
It's all
different
kind of
level?
the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's this show that I used to be obsessed with called The 100, and it kind of explored that theory too. Like, it was the end of the world, and they all like left to go to space, and then after like a certain amount of time, they came back to Earth, and then they realized like it was all just like a simulation, and like I don't know. I'm
Wait, is
just
it like Heaven's Gate?
I don't know. I think you would like it though. It was genuinely like one of my favorite shows ever.
I remember you telling me about it. Is this an American show or is it like South American?
Yeah. It's on the
Is it-
CW.
Okay.
It's super good.
So
By
this
the
was
way.
on between like episodes of Riverdale and Sabrina?
Ew, I never watched any of that. Are you kidding me?
No, I just mean that's on that network. That's what the CW is known for, right? Aren't they known for Riverdale?
It's pre-Riverdale, definitely.
Pre-Riverdale. Okay.
Yeah.
Riverdale Cinematic Universe. I can't hate on those shows. I've never seen any.
Please watch Riverdale. Just watch
I'll watch it. It could be great. I could love it.
No.
Oh, okay. So you know what I've been watching lately?
What?
BoJack Horseman.
You told me about
And
this. I've heard a
oh my
lot
God,
of people recently talking about this too.
you have to watch it. So I watched it a long time ago, but I went through an era where I thought that I couldn't sleep without having something on in the background. And it had to be comedy. And BoJack's kind of a comedy, but kind of a like
But
really
isn't it
intense
about like
drama.
yeah, it's too intense. It's like struggling. Is he an
It's
actor?
but he's an
Alcoholic
actor.
actor?
He's an
Yeah.
alcoholic actor, and it's very, very, very funny, but very deep and existential. And it's like the same way that Heretic makes you think about faith and belief. BoJack, it makes you think about like your ethics and morals, and it's really like this kind of existentialist. Apparently, so I was reading. I'm 2 episodes away from the end. But by the way, I was watching the time I watched BoJack all the way through. I was falling asleep during it, so I like missed pieces. This is the first
Yeah.
time I've ever like intentionally sat down and watched every episode of it. And I was reading some interviews with the creator of it, and then they interviewed his dad at one point, which is odd. Like the creator of some show's dad seems totally random, but apparently there is some Jewish mysticism text that is very close to like the themes and plot of BoJack. But now that BoJack's making it towards the end, it's starting to get a little deeper. But yeah, the same it makes this movie, Heretic, made me very introspective. And BoJack does the same thing, which seems absolutely ridiculous for a cartoon comedy about an anthropomorphic horse who's essentially the Bob Saget of Full House. That's like what his big acting gig was.
Wow.
He was
Yeah.
he was the adopted father of 3 humans in a show called Horsin' Around. But yeah, I think long story short, yes, these things, those two, the Heretic and BoJack, definitely connect for me because I'm consuming them both right now. But I think that the way that movies can be used to create conversations, it is like it's not unlike the way religious texts use stories and metaphor to make you ask the same questions.
Yeah. For sure.
And I think it's cool that we're at a point where film is being used in that way. I feel like for a long time it wasn't. Like I feel like we went through kind of a dark period where movies were very like surface level. But there's room for movies to be perfectly surface level. Like every once in a while I just want a stupid comedy that makes me laugh. But
Last night I
do-
watched Superbad, so yeah.
Nice. Random. Why Superbad?
I don't know, I just felt like it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My favorite characters, who is it? Bill Hader and Seth Rogen are cops.
Yeah, they're so good. That's the best part of that movie.
It's definitely the best part. And McLovin. McLovin never gets old. There was a McLovin meme or something recently, and Atlas asked me about it. He's like, "Dad, who's McLovin?" And
Oh,
I
God.
had to explain.
That's hilarious.
So, a question that we always ask: if you had to be one character in Heretic, who would you be?
Honestly, okay. I'm not gonna say that I would like to be Mr. Reed. I really did like his character though. But I think I would obviously have to be Sister Paxton.
For obvious reasons, right?
Obvious
Or you just liked
reasons.
her character?
I didn't like her character at all. I just
Uh,
think I just think I liked her arc, her development.
you like her end.
Yeah, like I was very frustrated with her character at the beginning and like she was like obviously really scared throughout and she just didn't seem like she knew what was going on.
Hmm.
Like in the beginning when they were before they got like locked in or whatever, like it just she just seemed very like naive, like she didn't know what was going on. So I was frustrated the whole time with her, but then the end was like good. So who would you
Um,
be?
I don't know. I think that you said something about like Mr. Reed liking his character. There's
Mhm.
you ever read the book Paradise Lost by Milton?
No.
It's this incredible text, and it's I think Milton was blind,
Uh-huh.
and he like narrated this to his daughter who transcribed it for him.
Wow.
But it's incredibly vivid depiction of like this battle between angels and devils and heaven and hell. And he gives this was at a time where you would be considered a heretic and you could be killed if you spoke out against the church. And
Hmm.
in Paradise Lost, he gives every single compelling argument to the character of the devil.
Wow.
And so you've got Lucifer making all these arguments about why God is a tyrant,
Hmm.
and it's incredible. Like it's been used a million times. Like the movie The Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves has lots of quotes from Milton from Paradise Lost. And I felt this movie did that really effectively, where there's just something about like whatever you want to say about the world or whatever you want to question, but you're maybe afraid to say. As a writer, you're just put those words in the villain's mouth and make the villain super compelling. I mean, they do the same thing with Ahab in Moby Dick. Like he's the most interesting character. Like Ishmael's pretty boring. And I think that this movie took from that school of thought so effectively, and that's part of what meant. And then has a great actor too. I don't know if you can pull this off without Hugh Grant being
Hmm.
so interesting to watch. Like he
Yeah.
really seems like he's delivering this with conviction. I would like to talk to him about his thoughts on religion.
Yeah.
So as a person who didn't grow up in necessarily any certain like religious tradition, I'm interested in how this something like this interests you versus somebody like me.
Well, I mean, obviously like I took a lot of religious classes in school, but I went to a Jewish private school for a while and I learned a lot about that religion and just like I the only time I really ever went to like church, like I went to a Methodist church with like friends
Hmm.
after like sleepovers and stuff, and it was just like really shocking for me to witness people kind of like give their life to something so like mystical and like crazy. And I always kind of made fun of that when I was growing up. And I was like I was kind of bratty about religion when I was younger. And I just thought that it was like so dumb and like it's obvious like this is not real. But as I got older, I kind of became more, I would say spiritual, I think, and just like believing that people look to religion for comfort, but also like no one knows. So
Hmm.
there's like there is a possibility that it is real. And going to a Jewish school, I learned a lot about that religion and like what it brought for people. And I don't know, ever since then, I've just been really interested in learning about all the different types of religion and different backgrounds.
Yeah,
And
it is
it's crazy to
interesting.
me because like Christianity, Catholicism is the most foreign for me. Like I know the least about those. So,
read any of the scripts I have written, and you will find lots of Catholicism, like
I
lots of
have.
here's what I found, like as a kid, I guess like the theatricality and pageantry of Catholicism is really
Yeah.
interesting to me, and
I
the
also had
orthodoxy.
like, sorry, go ahead.
Continue.
No, I just also had teachers. I had like very, like, all my historical teachers who taught about Catholicism or battles or the Roman Empire or whatever, they were like clearly like this is like they made up this religion. Like they were already critical of it. So it kind of just instilled that in my head anyway.
Yeah, I think I guess I'm answering a question I asked earlier. Is there any reason that people look to religion other than to answer the question of what happens after death? And I think, yes, a big part of it
Hmm.
is like people who have a religious faith, it becomes the organizing principles of their life. It gives you a playbook for your morals, your ethics, your the way you spend your time. Also to have I guess the intention of your time, to have something that you go like, how often for non-religious people do you spend time at night with or in the morning with your thoughts in what would be prayer? Or how often do you spend a week or an hour a week going to a place where you're intentionally going to focus your thoughts on something that you believe has deep meaning? And so I think there's a lot that people get out of religion aside from
Yeah.
just being an answer to the terrifying question of what happens after death.
I mean, I manifest. Like I've listened to The Secret. I believe in manifestation. I go to the beach to journal. I go on hikes where I just have like no sound, clear thought. I do run meditations. Like it's kind of just like an escape. And I guess it's just people putting a name on it.
Yeah, that is the most California take on religion and spirituality
That's
imaginable.
so. No, it's not. It's not at all. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual.
Not. Stop.
Um,
I am.
I'm not doubting you. I'm not doubting you.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, so let's see. I bet critics love this movie, right?
Yeah. I rated it 5 stars, obviously.
Yeah, this was 91% tomato meter,
Whoa.
77% popcorn meter, which is like the um non-critics but the viewers.
Are we still
My
going to be
get
reading Rotten Tomato? We shouldn't.
Just a little. We'll read a
Okay.
couple. So LA Times, Sergio Birdstein says complex debate on the legitimacy of religion that arrives framed in absolutely captivating staging. I agree. Here's somebody who doesn't like it. Top critic Oliver Jones, The Observer. As a housebound sadist menacing a pair of Mormon missionaries in the new horror film Heretic, Grant gives the least engaged and most profoundly joyless performance of his 5-decade career. Get
What?
out of town. This
I
dude
think this
gave it
is one of his
1.5 out of
greatest
4.
performances ever.
Well, here's what I'm wondering. I would say that amongst film critics, I would say there are more film critics who are agnostic or atheist than religious. I would say that there's a good chance that amongst the people who didn't like this, like I really want to talk to some people. I talked to a friend yesterday who's like very into his Christian faith, and I want to see what he thinks about this movie because I'm curious if people who are of devout religious faith are able to enjoy this film. If I had to put money on it, I would say that this critic from The Observer is probably religious in some way, and that's why he
Yeah.
doesn't like it. But that's just, that's me projecting. Well, maybe the dude just didn't dig it. But I somebody says it's a lukewarm reveal regarding the one true religion. I agree with that. Like his reveal, but that's also, we already said, like the movie starts to get a little, it's strongest in the beginning, in the middle, and the end is not quite as awesome. But it's so good that it doesn't take away for me from
Yeah.
what the overall is. We'll go over to Letterbox for a second here.
They're just very funny reviews.
You're better at finding the funny ones than me. I don't know why. I don't know how you see them faster than I do.
They're so
Oh
funny.
God,
Love
this
it.
is good. No way Hugh Grant just compared Jesus to Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
That's That is good. Jigsaw, if he was an insufferable Reddit atheist. Oh, this
I
person
was
didn't
thinking
like
that whole
it, but
time,
that's
like,
funny.
I was thinking like he's like on Reddit. Like, Mr. Reed is all over Reddit.
I shit you not, Hugh Grant sings Creep by Radiohead and meows in this.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Uh,
Insane fast food tier list. That's so true. That whole time, like, there was a whole conversation where he was talking about fast food and like comparing it to religion and stuff, and they said like Jack in the Box was good.
oh yeah, Jack in the Box is notoriously the worst. They're never going to sponsor us. Who else have we hated on this podcast? Applebee's and Jack in the Box. Those are not going to be our sponsors. Didn't we hate on Applebee's?
Probably.
If not, we should have. Applebee's sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie had lots of really fun pop culture references. Like even there's a Voltaire quote, and she like with great power comes great responsibility, and Paxton's like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And Hugh Grant says Voltaire. And what else? There was a bunch of them. There were like a bunch, like no less than I would say a dozen really funny pop culture references that also, and was that just them trying to make the movie entertaining, or was that reflecting on the fact that religion essentially is pop culture?
I think so. Like, it's the same as being, I don't know, people say certain musicians or artists are like a religion to them, like Lana Del Rey is like God or something.
To you?
And like also think about Star Wars. That's like a cult. Like Star Wars people, like, think about it.
Yeah, well, also they don't mention Joseph Campbell in this at all, but Joseph Campbell he wrote the book Hero with Hero of the Thousand Faces, and that book looks at like everything. It doesn't compare Jesus to Jar Jar, but it compares Jesus to Luke Skywalker, and it's a look at all the similarities across all these religions. Like essentially, Hugh Grant's argument is made by Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. He calls it, what does he call it? The hero's myth, the something hero's myth. You look like you've got something to say. The hero's journey, the hero's quest, which interestingly enough is used as a kind of like structure for screenwriting that people talk about a lot.
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I was
like
going to say
religion thing. Oh, okay. Go.
I was going to say, talking about how like for screenwriting, for example, I wrote this script like a while ago. It's like a passion project of mine, and I obviously wanted a song in there. And so I like had the main character hum this certain song, and you're like, one of your biggest notes for me was like, they're not going to be able to hum that. Like no one's going to get it. Like you need to either choose a different song or like not hum it or something. But Hugh Grant is humming like Creep and like that, like Radiohead, like, and I knew it. So I don't know. Someone was talking about him humming, and I thought about.
But
that.
he had already played The Air That I Breathe.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, but if it plays before in my movie,
so the whole movie
plays before.
The song. So you
Literally,
were thinking the whole movie that I was wrong.
Yes. Literally, that entire time I was thinking about, okay, I can totally have a character hum this song.
Good. I would like to be proven wrong. Prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I will.
That's like, isn't that a part of every, in if we're talking hero's journey, isn't that a part of every child's journey? Is at some point you have to prove your parents wrong?
Yeah.
My dad tells me regularly that he didn't want me to go into the movie business, and he's happy that I proved him wrong.
That's like mommy. I don't think you've ever really given me anything that I have to prove you wrong on. I think I've made... Okay, here's the thing. I make a lot of decisions for myself like now, and like I feel like you approve of most of them, but like most parents wouldn't. They'd be like, that's the wrong choice. Like, you shouldn't have done that. But I feel like you give me the riskier option or the riskier advice, and I appreciate that. I look up to you for that. Why?
Wow, thanks. That was deep. I do that because you can face life. I believe this is a binary. I believe that there's one of two ways to face life. I think there is a life where you're constantly looking for the path that is most likely to succeed. And I think if you look at the life that is most likely to succeed, you're probably playing it safe. If you play
Yeah.
it safe, you get to the end of your life, and even if you have a very comfortable life, and you ask yourself, "What if?" And like, by the way, like comfort, like provided that this is going to sound like whatever, very privileged, but if you've got your basic needs covered, right? You're like
Hmm.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're not starving. You've got a roof over your head. You're not worried about where next week's bills are coming from. Even like thinking like in the long term of like human history, if you know where your next month's supply of food and shelter is coming from, you're better off than
Hmm.
99% of maybe 99.9% of humans that have ever lived. Okay? So if you've got those things figured out, you start to think about other things, and you start to ask yourself, what if? Even if you're really comfortable, like even if you're relatively successful in a career that was your safety career,
Hmm.
you wonder what if. And I would rather try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and know that, like, at the worst case, you can figure out a way to scrap a living together, right? You can figure
Hmm.
that out. Like, I would rather say I'm going to take the burden upon myself to figure out how to scrap resources together to live while I try to pursue my dreams, rather than say I'm going to put all my effort into making sure that I have a comfortable life, and
Hmm.
my dreams can wait, because they can't wait. Like,
Yeah.
you'll see this as you get older. So that's like that. I will tell you and all of our kids the same thing. Like, don't chase comfort. Don't
Yeah.
chase stability. Chase your dream. Like that. You're
Hmm.
when you're on your deathbed. Speaking of death, you're not going to think about how comfortable your life was. You're going to think about the experiences you had. You're going to think about the things you accomplished. You're going to think about the dreams that you made true for yourself and for others. And I feel like that is like one thing that I am extremely passionate about, is that a life chasing material comfort is a life wasted, because in the end all that stuff goes away. And you can lose
Yeah.
it, even if you live a even if a a storm can come sweep away everything that
Yeah.
you own. And guess what? You forgot to pay your house insurance bill or your renter's insurance bill. Everything you built your life for, if you're living for comfort, can be gone in an instant. But if
Yeah.
you live your life for your dreams, those never go away.
I think like once I started to actively practice that way of living in life, like I don't really like to think of things too far into the future either, and I like things to just plan out as they're supposed to, and that's just a good way to live, I think. If
Yeah,
I
because
always say I'm grateful because I have the basic needs to live. Like I'm grateful for life. I get to go to the beach whenever I want. I get to do fun projects whenever I want to, and I get to take risks all the time, and that's like all that matters. As long as like I'm happy, that's all that matters.
yeah, I mean, I was when I was a little older than you, I was like, I as far as like material things, I had nothing. You've heard this a million times, but like
You
I didn't have a bed. I like, and this was by
Yeah,
choice, by the way. I'm going to
yeah.
like I'm not going to be like the person who does like
I
poverty
was
cosplay.
poor. Yeah.
No, it's not that. Like, I could have called like 15 different people who would have like given me money to buy stuff if I needed it. Honestly, at times I had the money, I just didn't go buy it. But I lived with
Yeah.
very little, and very intentionally, because I didn't want to own more than I could fit in my car, because I didn't want physical things holding me back. I would still live that way, by the way, if I didn't have kids. With kids, you can't.
Hmm.
You need to give them some sort of stability. But that like the era you're living in now, which is an era that I lived through, really does teach you that, like, it teaches you what matters to you in your life when you're able to put those blinders on and not say I'm chasing some like dollar amount, or I want to
Hmm.
buy a car, I want to buy a house. When you're not thinking about those things and you're thinking about like, what is the experience that I want to have, that changes you for the rest of your life, because
Yeah.
you realize that like there really isn't a future. The future is an illusion. I could get hit by a
Hmm.
bus tomorrow, and if I wasted my life living for that tomorrow that never came, and there's a fine line
Or
to
even
that,
for
right?
like to make other people happy. Like I always, not that like this was ever brought upon me, like I'm always free to make my own decisions. I always just wanted to do the thing that would make my family the happiest. Like go to college, get a good job, all these things, but like it doesn't matter. It
Right. And
really
that's
doesn't
interesting
matter.
too, because you were just where were you getting those ideas that anybody wanted you to do
I
that?
exactly. I had no pressure to do those things, and it is just like something you grow up with. I
But
don't
there's
know if it's
societal
like
pressure, and
instilled or
there's
what.
also Yeah, I think it's societal pressure, and I also think there's competition because like that happens in school.
Yeah.
Like everybody's competing to get these grades and get these test scores to get into these schools. Why are they going to go to these schools? Probably because they want to
Hmm.
make their parents happy. Why do their parents want those kids to go to those schools? Honestly, because those parents want to brag to their friends that like
So
my kid
true.
is at
So
wherever.
real.
That it's really like, oh, by the way, I'm just on a soapbox about all kinds of stuff this afternoon. But
That's good.
as a parent, it's funny. I understand what it means to be proud of your kids, but like
Hmm.
the pride of like seeing you guys in like a school play or like doing a school project really well is a very deep, intense form of pride that is really hard to understand until you're in that position as a parent.
Hmm.
However, there's people who have peaked, and I think largely it's people who have chased that life of comfort, and
Yeah.
they then live vicariously through their kids. And
That's the
so it's
word.
like this is the best I'm ever. I don't feel this. I haven't peaked yet, but they feel like this is the best my life's ever going to be. I kind of did it already, right? I'm like
Yeah.
40, 45 years old. I kind of did it. All I've got now is where's my kid going to go to college? Where is my kid going to get a job? And that repeats like generation after generation after generation. And like again, these things are all fine lines. There's a lot of nuance involved because you can't just live for today. It's like you like to eat healthy, you like to
Hmm.
exercise. Those things help your tomorrow be better. You know that you need to get enough sleep at night to feel good the next day. So you do have to live a little for tomorrow, but you also can't completely sacrifice today, or else you get to the end and you've never lived. Similarly, you
Yeah.
want to be proud of your kids, but and you want a lot of your meaning in life to come from your kids, but if all you have is bragging about your kid's achievement, like, dude, you need to figure something else out because
Hmm.
you're now inevitably going to make your kid miserable because you're putting
Yeah,
all this
for
pressure
sure.
on them.
Yeah. God.
And I don't know, but maybe I do the opposite with you. Maybe the pressure is the opposite. It's like, no, you need to go out on this anarchic path in the wild and figure out the meaning of your life and figure out how to navigate it through it. Maybe that's a different type of pressure. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, you used to always, I don't know why I'm thinking about this. You used to always tell a story to Atlas that we like left him like it's I don't know which ancient civilization it is.
The
Is
Spartans.
it yeah, okay, the Spartans who leave like the baby on the mountain, and if it comes back down and it survives, then like yay, woohoo, we're proud. And like I don't know, that's how I kind of think of how we were raised by you.
Yeah, that is
But
the
like in the
our
best way possible. Like in the best way.
right. I very frequently say to all of you, I'm going to help you by not helping you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I genuinely think at one point Atlas believed that the story was he was born in the middle of winter. We set him out on a hill in the snow, and if the wolves didn't eat him, and if he didn't freeze to death, then he was allowed to be a member of the family.
Yeah.
Which is like a derivation of the Spartan myth that they put their kids out
Uh-huh.
on a hill to survive their first night. But I think he believed it at one point.
No, he totally did.
It's amazing. I'm gonna ask about that later today, see if he still does.
You should. You should.
All right, we should probably wrap this up. Man, that was a tangent, but that's that's what these good movies do. It's like they make you think
Hmm.
about the things. Like, look, we're thinking about the relationship
Life.
dynamic we have and like what means something to us in life and the way we
Hmm.
live our lives. Like we wouldn't be having this conversation right now unprompted. We're having this because this movie stimulated those thoughts because it asked
Hmm.
those questions. And I think big ups to everybody involved for doing something, and that's what I think the best of religion is a catalyst to conversation and a
Yeah,
way
for
to
sure.
find your own meaning. And this did that. I mean, interestingly enough, a movie that questions religion sort of in its own way made an argument for religion. Mm-hmm. Or at least for a framework, for a life framework. Like, I guess we've got a life framework that I didn't even realize we had.
Yeah. Of course.
Cool. Well, next week, I think we are going to... Well, I guess, do you have anything else to say? Was there anything you came into this wanting to discuss that you haven't been able to?
I think we covered it.
Cool. All right. I think we're going to see Gladiator 2
I have to watch
for
the
our
first
next
one.
movie. You have to watch the first one. You get to have a sword and sandals weekend.
I'm very excited.
Oh, you're just
about
excited. You're just excited because you want to see Paul Mescal on the big screen.
it. No, that's not true. No.
All right. Why are you excited?
Roman Empire. I think about the Roman Empire a lot. I'm like a boy.
When was that? We'll talk about this more next week.
Ago. Yeah. I think
it was a year ago. Yeah, when that whole Roman Empire thing was happening, it was like Kaya and I both completely unironically really like we both think about the Roman Empire every day. You talked about the Roman Empire earlier on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's really hard. There's so many parallels between the Roman Empire and the American Empire that it's really hard to live in a society so similar but so different to that society and not think about it regularly. The parallels are everywhere.
Exactly.
Also great fashion. I think you're going to see some awesome stuff. I think this movie is going to look beautiful. I think it's going to be super exciting. The trailer is phenomenal. I loved the first Gladiator. I think Gladiator 2 is maybe the worst title for a movie I've ever heard in my life. But it's like the ultimate lack of creativity.
Yeah.
Gladiator 2. But
Shrek too. But okay.
There's not like a more clever Shrek. Isn't it like Shrek 2 doesn't have a subtitle? It's just Shrek 2.
Maybe it does. There's no like subtext for Gladiator 2. There's nothing.
No, it's just Gladiator 2.
Oh my god.
Same thing for Shrek. Shrek is just Shrek 2. And then they started getting more clever.
And then they got
Shrek
like
the Third, then Shrek Forever After, and then Puss in Boots,
After.
The Adventure of Puss in Boots, Puss in Boots: Last Wish. Oh, by the way, I just have to throw out there, and I'm gonna get like major flack for this, but Mumsy, Kai's mom, my wife, for like years thought that Puss in Boots was a dog.
And called our Pomeranian Ninja Puss in Boots all the time. She's like, oh, we can dress him up like Puss in Boots. I'm like, okay.
He did look like Puss in Boots, but that's because he looked like a cat.
Yeah.
Yes, and the love of milk and fur balls. Like, there's a whole lot of cat signifiers going around with Puss in Boots. Like all the cat signifiers.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, cool. I already can't wait until we publish this, and she's mad at me for like 2 days. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's all we got. We're coming up with Gladiator 2 next. We might switch up the format a little on this and start talking about some more things other than just whatever movie we saw this week.
Yeah.
We hope you guys are digging this. Let us know in the comments or via text, email, phone call, courier pigeon, or whatever other means you have. Let us know what you're thinking because we're having fun. We want you guys to have fun. Thank you for listening. Go check out Heretic. Peace.
Swag. Money YOLO.
Wait. All right, now we're done.